to you if you are not, however. A sun salutation is what we tend to do at the beginning of a practice to kind of warm everything up and to get you present in your body. You can basically use this small sequence of poses as any kind of warm-up before you do yoga, before you go do something else, because it's really going to allow you to stretch and activate all throughout your body. So the way we're going to do this particular one today is by holding every single pose for about 5 breaths. If instead what you're trying to do is get blood flowing a little bit more, you would do several rounds, holding each pose for about a breath. So different ways that you can approach the exact same poses to get different experiences out of them. So you choose what you wish. Today, for teaching purposes, we're going to be holding everything for 5 breaths, which is a wonderful way, again, to kind of wake the body up. And what I mean by this being wrist-friendly is traditionally in these warm-ups, we do a lot of high planks on the hands. We do chaturanga, so it's a little push-up on the wrists. And a lot of that, for some people, can be really, really intense, more than what they're looking for. So instead, you're going to get just as intense of a workout. We're just going to be working on the forearms instead of on the wrists. So that can apply whether your wrists are damaged or whether you've just been doing a lot of things where you've been doing a lot of push-ups and you need a different approach. So to begin with, you're going to come into a child's pose. So for child's pose, you're going to bring your toes together, your knees nice and wide, and take your arms long in front of you. This pose will look a little different in everybody's body. I'm only going to be able to demonstrate one side of this next thing because to be able to get in my frame, in my small space here, I'm right up against my wall. So you're going to hear me say right and left, but I'm only going to be able to do left. So, taking your arms long in front of you, let your forehead come to rest on your mat. Go ahead and start off really relaxed. So let your elbows rest onto the mat. Start to walk your hands over to one side. Could be right, could be left, whatever feels more natural to you to begin with. So we're just taking a long side stretch through the body. So the opposite hip should still be pressing down towards your heel. If you want to get a little bit more, the closer arm, so not the side that you're reaching towards, the opposite arm, that hand can come to rest on top of the other hand and give you a little bit more of a stretch. Or the arm that's towards the side you're reaching to, you could walk to the back heel. So see if you like either of those variations. And then when you're complete, you feel good and now you've had about 5 breaths, maybe a little bit more, you'll take it to the other side. The goal here is to feel this all through the sides of the body, up into the lats, even into the hip a little bit, depending upon how tight you are and how things are doing. After about 5 breaths, come back through center. You're going to come forward onto your stomach. So we're going to slide out onto the belly. Take your legs long, letting your hips and the entirety of your legs all the way to the tops of your feet press into the mat. You're going to stack your elbows right underneath your shoulders, wrists right in front of the elbows. You're going to take a little baby sphinx. So for sphinx, you're going to draw the center of your chest through your shoulders and gently start to arc up. It's a very gentle little back bend. It can be intense. This is entirely determined by how much you draw forward and how much you arc up. If you ever want to feel any pinching in the low back though, so if it becomes intense in your lower back, take it down a notch. Really deliberate breath in every pose. After about 5 breaths, you're going to keep your forearms planted on the mat, but you're going to start to walk your legs in. Come up first onto your knees. Get a nice solid, essentially a tabletop pose, but on your forearms. And then curl your toes under, and you're going to press your hips up and back. As we get here, you're going to bend your left knee deep, so you bring a lot of focus into the right leg, into the right calf, and the right hamstring. You're going to take a couple of deep breaths here. And it might feel good to you to kind of shift your weight. So if I let my weight really drop to the left, I feel this stretch in one part of my calf. If I come through center, I feel it in a different part. And if I let my left And then you're gonna take it to the other side. So right knee bends, left leg is straight. Again, you've got the chance to kind of shift and move in your hips, which will change where you feel the pose in your calves. And you'll come back through center. See if you can walk a couple more steps in now that things are a little more open in your shoulders. And take 3 more deep breaths. And staying on the forearms, you're going to walk back and you're going to take 2 more big breaths right here in a forearm plank, just lifting in and up through your core. Your shoulders might be really mad about now. Tell them that you're doing them a favor. It's going to pass soon. And then release. Let your knees drop. Draw yourself up to a seat. Give yourself a couple of little shoulder rolls to loosen that up. You don't do dolphin very often. That can get pretty intense. In fact, swing your arms up overhead. Bend your elbows. Let your hands come down towards the middle of your back. A little baby stretch. And release. You're just going to stand up. Come to the top of your mat. We're going to take some side stretches. I'm going to face this way so you guys can see. So a little mountain. Reach your arms up to the ceiling. You can even interlace your palms and point your fingers up to the ceiling. And then grab onto your left wrist. Reach up and over to the right. Let your hips press left. A couple of full breaths right here. You can even allow things to start to rotate towards the ceiling if that feels good. And then come back through center. Take it to the other side. Come back through center. Bring your hands to your lower back. Fingertips facing up the back. Hug your elbows towards each other and take your gaze up and back. A little back bend. This can be really small. This can be really big. Depends on where you are right now. And then draw yourself back up. Hands to heart center. Pause for a moment. That was our variation of a sun A. Now we're going to move into the second phase, which is going to be a sun B. You're going to start with a balance. Take your left foot and start to draw it up into tree. That could be tree with your toes on the mat. It could be tree with your foot drawn all the way up. You can place that foot against the inner thigh if you like. Hands to heart center. 5 breaths to breathe here. If it gets shaky, it's absolutely okay. If you fall out of the pose, just come back to it. It's totally fine. At the end of 5 breaths, you're going to step your left foot to the back of your mat to find your warrior 1. So stepping the left foot towards the back of the mat, toes are slightly turned out. Readjust your feet if you need. Pull down, sweep up towards the ceiling. Get 5 breaths right here. Every exhale, seeing if you can sink a little bit deeper into the leg, opening up a little bit more. And then cactusing the arms for 5 more breaths. So cactus your arms. Let your gaze come up and back. Really opening here now through chest, through heart, through shoulders. Continuing to sink into the front knee. Anyone who says slow yoga isn't easy, they don't know what they're talking about. Holding these poses is hard. From here we're going to come to Skandasana. So you're going to move into your left leg. This is a long lateral lunge. You can stay up high like this, letting that heel stay on the mat, or I prefer to come really deep. Feels better to me. Your hands can even be on the mat, which is where I like them. I like to take my arms and kind of walk them out so I can really open up through the inside of that right leg. But you take whatever feels good to you. The goal here is just to get a side lunge to be able to open up through your adductors. That's this big, huge muscle right through here. And we want to make sure we give it a little bit of left. After your 5 breaths, you're going to come to a big open twist at the top of your mat. This is one of the few times where we actually will be on your wrist. Know that you can also come up onto fingertips, or you can come up onto your fist rather than resting on the wrist. But you're going to bend back into that right leg. Left foot's going to turn in. That leg's going to be nice and long. I'm going to be on my fist here and then reach my right arm up to the ceiling. So I get a big open twist, opening through the upper back. If you're limber enough, you can do this on your forearm as well. If your hip is limber enough to handle that. Last pose, you're going to drop your back knee and extend chest towards your toes and driving your hips back a little. So you take whatever you need. Now last pose on this side, where you come back to a low lunge with the back knee all the way down though. So you're gonna bend back into that right leg. Back knee is all the way down. Hands can just rest right here on your leg if you'd like. They can reach up towards the ceiling. Or if you're wanting to get more into your shoulders, clasp your hands behind your back, lengthen down. Open through the shoulders as well. And you get kind of a little bit of everything here. 5 big breaths, really opening up through the front of the left leg. As you're complete, you're going to forward fold at the top of your mat. It may not be graceful, that's okay. We're going to plant our hand, step that back foot forward, we get a little forward fold. First time we've really done a forward fold, so shake those knees out a little bit, even a little sway side to side or bending into each leg as you need, let your head release. And then roll yourself all the way up to a mountain and draw your hands back to heart center. So we can take this to the second side. Again, I'm right next to a wall, so I'm going to flip around. So now, right foot. It's going to come up, find that tree. So here's a trick. If your balance is just not cooperating, a wall is great. You can also plant your toes on the mat and let your heel press into your standing leg, which still gives you a balance challenge. You're still working on being on an unstable platform, but it lets you actually feel into the pose rather than just being stressed about trying to balance. Sometimes it's just not what we need. After about 5 breaths, that right foot will step all the way back, setting yourself up for that warrior one. So in warrior one, we want to have both sides of the rib cage aiming towards the front of our mat. Don't worry about the hips, they'll get as square as they comfortably can. And then making sure you're not rolling in on that back foot. Drive down the outer edge of your back foot. Arms up. You guys have probably already been here for a few breaths, so we're just going to give it 1 or 2 more. And then we'll add the cactus arms, a little hinge of a back leg, kind of try and come a little deeper into the front knee. Into our lateral lunge or our skandasana. One little chance to really, I like to reach really far forward because I feel like I feel it more in my adductor. See where you need to go if you like to be more up high. Remembering that these poses look different on every single person. So they don't have to look like me or like anybody else's. They don't have to look like a picture you find on the internet. The goal here is for it to work in your unique body. Which is why I talk a lot about where I expect you to be feeling something. So you know, if I don't feel anything here, I gotta shift and move until I find something. So you know the goal of the pose is. Next, we're gonna move into that long twisted lunge, so moving into the left foot. Right hand or right forearm comes down to the mat. Left arm reaches up to the ceiling, trying to open up at the upper back. Into half split, right knee drops, left leg straightens. You'll notice I'm not sitting back on my heel. I'm trying to press my hips back and up. So I'm really lengthening through the hamstring. And again, hands can be down. You can be braced on something. You can have a block nearby. Whatever you need to do to be able to get this. I can still get this stretch by being up high, just by grounding down through that heel and pulling back with my hip, and forcing that hamstring to lengthen. And then finally coming into a low lunge, so bending deep into the left leg. If you have walls nearby, you can still use it for support. Or you can take that clasp behind your back, lengthen down, open the chest, or just hands on the knee. Tell it to you, it feels good to you. If your kneecap is a little sensitive, you can also always fold up the edge of your mat, give yourself more support there if you need a little bit more comfort. Take those 5 full breaths. So just step back to the top of your mat, shake it out. A little half lift through the spine, a forward fold. Mountain, maybe a back bend this time. Hands to heart center.